Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Times Now with me, Priya Behel. And the big development we are getting to know about is that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to address the nation at around 8 p.m. tonight. What are the expectations from that address? To decode that, I'm now joined by Brahma Chalani, Strategic Affairs Expert, Air Marshal R.G.K. Kapoor, Ex-Air Officer Commanding in Chief AOCNC Central Air Command is with us, and Professor Madhav Nalapat, Geopolitical Analyst, continues to be with us. Mr. Chalani, we were talking just yesterday about how we need our political leadership to come and address the nation. What is it that you would expect to be addressed in Prime Minister's address to the nation?
That's right, Priya. We were discussing exactly the need for the Prime Minister to take the country into confidence. So I'm glad that he has decided to address the nation, and I hope he does address the troubling questions that have arisen from his abrupt decision to cease all military hostilities. The big question that he needs to answer, the question that everybody is asking, is that why did India, under US pressure, halt a military campaign just as India's armed forces had seized the upper hand? Normally you expect such a military momentum to be fully capitalized so that there is a definitive outcome. You don't leave an operation inconclusive. When you leave an operation inconclusive, it creates the international impression, even if one side has delivered heavy blows to the other side, but internationally the perception then is created that it was largely a draw. As you know that in Pakistan they celebrated the ceasefire, and the Prime Minister Sharif called it a victory, Pakistani victory against India. So the question that he needs to address tonight, and I hope he does that, is that what did we accomplish in just 3 days? And two, given the fact that we are a rising power, why did we succumb to US pressure? Now, for Donald Trump, this is clearly a big diplomatic win, given the fact that his campaign promises to end the wars in Ukraine and Gaza, his efforts thus far have failed on both those fronts, but he scored a major diplomatic win by brokering an India-Pakistan ceasefire. But the question for India is this: what does it say about India that it easily succumbed to US pressure and terminated its military operations just 3 days after launching them? Does it enhance or undercut India's image as a rising world power? That in dealing with a terrorist state like Pakistan, India allowed the US to shield Pakistan from the consequences of Pakistan's own actions.
Okay. Air Marshal Kapoor, this address by the Prime Minister comes after one off-camera briefing from the government, two official media briefings at a DGMO level, and also by the time PM is going to address the country, we would have already had the first round of talks between the India DGMO as well as the Pakistani counterpart. What are the three things that you would expect and hope that Prime Minister addresses in his speech?
I think it's a very clear progression of Indian exposition to whatever has happened. Initially we had one wing commander, one colonel with the foreign secretary, then we have the DGMO, DGAO, DGMO and DGNO, and now I think finally there would be some reason towards the cessation of cross-border firing and all, that the Prime Minister has decided to address the nation. And so while there would have been many inputs, pressures, or whatever one may call it, the final decision I think the Prime Minister would have taken with the advice of all those who are involved. The bottom line is, I think it will be the DGMO's talk at 5 o'clock now. That would be a kind of input that the Prime Minister's office would be waiting before he finally says. But I think he would be very clear. One cannot actually presuppose or prematurely speak, what would the Prime Minister say? But I'm sure he would speak about the objectives, the kind of response this time we have taken against the terrorism, the continuously increasing intensity of response from Uri to Balakot to now, which also kind of puts in perspective the strong measures that India as a nation would take independently without any external pressure to address terrorism. Because I personally feel that just the military application of force does not end terrorism. The example that I can give you straight away is US reaching a deal with Houthis and stopping their military operations in spite of Israel being there, and they were trying to finish it. And so do we say that the problem of Houthis is over? I don't think so. And so if we say that 20% of Pakistan Air Force is neutralized, if we say that there has been a cost to the terrorists, there is a cost to the number of terrorists that have been killed, their infrastructure, which was earlier one at a time, this time all three at a time. So I think Prime Minister would cover all this, and the role of the military. He would also say that how the freedom that he gave to the commanders has actually produced those results. He would surely laud the role of the civil population in the country, which has withstood the swarms of drones which have tried to attack the civilian population and the civilian infrastructure, especially in J&K. And so he may share his objectives, whether political objectives, military objectives that he had set out, and what lies ahead. Probably he may have a message to the world of what lies ahead in case this happens.
Right. Mr. Narapat, what lies ahead is a very big question. We have already said that we are living a new normal where it is not going to be business as usual with Pakistan, but with the talks at DGMO level being restricted only and only to the current military situation. And even there, we have seen that there is already a standoff in the offing. India says we are not going to talk about Kashmir or Indus Water Treaty, which continues to remain in abeyance. Pakistan says those are the two issues that it is very keen on talking about. Keeping that in mind, would Prime Minister's address be more strategic in its tone, or will it be more political, or is it going to speak about diplomacy given the consternation around US's role in this?
Look, I'd like to point out that India did not go after terror camps. India did not go after the camps where terrorists are trained or whatever. India went after the roots of that terror, which is the Pakistan military. As both the other panelists on the show will testify, India went after the military targets, and significant military targets. And there was significant degrading of those targets. So that, quite frankly, is there visibly, and our army and our military commanders have shown it, and they've also shown the immense damage done to Pakistan military facilities. Till now, we used to go back and hit terror camps, and terror camps, frankly, can come up anywhere. The basic source of that terror is the Pakistan military. And what we went after from day one is the Pakistan military, and it has been significantly degraded. Yes, there are people who believe we should not have stopped, but let's be honest, we live in the world, and the United States and other countries are also significant in that world, in what different way China is, and the US is in a totally different way. I mean, so the Prime Minister has to take a 360 view of the whole thing. He can't take a narrow view. He's got to take a comprehensive view. And I'm sure he'll explain why he hit the pause button when he did, because the military is in operational readiness, ready to move again at any time. And I think it's not our military that's in any disarray or in any state of demoralization. Our military is fully charged up, as they always are. And so I think the Prime Minister will explain to the whole country why he hit the pause button on this particular operation at a time when things were going very well for India. And there would have been very cogent reasons behind that, including, as you said, questions of diplomacy and geopolitics, the relationship between India and the United States, and the involvement of China in this particular conflict, which has made itself very, very conspicuous by its involvement. And from all points of view, I'd like to say 360-degree view is what the Prime Minister has got, and that is what the Prime Minister's office focuses on. So I'm very certain that he will explain that view to the people of India and to the people of the world and set doubts as rest as to whether the decision was correct or not. The point of the matter is that we have to understand we are not living in an island alone on the planet. We are living amid a lot of countries, some of whom are going to be very important in the future for India, some of whom were important in the past. And as for resisting US pressure, there was a lot of US pressure, as I recall, against this friendship with Russia. But the friendship with Russia has continued and continues to continue. So I don't believe that pressure is going to work. And frankly, there's a point beyond which the United States will also not want to pressure India. And I mean, you saw what's happened in Russia. They've had to come very, very close to China because the Europeans. And Trump very sensibly said, look, let's pull away from that. And I think the unspoken message is there's a much bigger challenge out there in the Indo-Pacific, and there's a much bigger country than Ukraine, than Russia in terms of economic heft and, well, physical military capability. Man to man is maybe a different thing than Russia. So I do believe the Prime Minister will explain, to the extent that he can explain in public, the 360-degree view with which he took that decision and why that decision was necessary at this point in time. Thank you.
All right. Dr. Chilani, a lot has been said about India's communication strategy and information warfare. Now, this is probably going to be the 5th time that Prime Minister is going to speak about Pahalgam. How would you see the way India has approached this issue? We have been speaking on the hotlines. External Affairs Minister has been speaking to different countries in the world. NSA has been dialing up his counterparts. Then we've had systematic briefings coming in from the government and now the Prime Minister himself. Do you think India is now doing relatively better when it comes to information warfare?
I think India's public diplomacy has certainly improved from the past crises. If you look back at how India responded to, let's say, the Kargil war, or to the terrorist killings in Pathankot, in Uri, where India conducted, for example, the 2016 surgical strikes, the 2019 Balakot airstrike, the Indian public diplomacy this time is a significant improvement on the past record. Also, this time the government was a bit more proactive in countering disinformation. For example, the PIB was releasing posts about how certain disinformation was being spread on social media. And I think that is good. But I think the international narrative, India has not been able to influence because, and this is partly because of the fact that we did not take Operation Sindoor to its logical conclusion. If you can demonstrate success to the world, then the victor's narrative prevails in the world, as history shows. But when you agree to a ceasefire with a rival, and the world perceives that this may be largely a draw, even though India had the upper hand, then what happens is that they begin to pair the two parties So you see the rehyphenation of India and
Yes.
Pakistan, and you also see now not just Trump alone, but other Western leaders, the G7 foreign ministers too,
Yes.
putting the spotlight on Kashmir as a core issue that needs to be resolved.
And
So
which is why, perhaps, sorry for interjecting you, sir, it is important that Prime Minister comes out and addresses, because speaking to the people of a country is one of his core strengths. When Prime Minister speaks, an entire country listens, and the way he touches a chord with the people of this country is also one of his known strengths. Let's, for our viewers, play out what Prime Minister has said so far on the issue of Pahalgam since the April 22 carnage.
अब आतंकियों की बची खुची जमीन को भी मिट्टी में मिलाने का समय आ गया है और इस हमले की साजिश रचने वालों को उनकी कल्पना से भी बड़ी सजा मिलेगी। सजा मिलकर के रहेगी। 140 करोड़ भारतीयों की इच्छा शक्ति अब आतंकी आकाओं की कमर तोड़ कर रहेगी। I say to the whole world, India will identify, track and punish every terrorist and their backers. We will pursue them to the ends of the earth. India's spirit will never be broken by terrorism.
Never the one to mince words. Thank you, sirs, for joining us. We are taking a very quick break because in minutes from now is that all-important call between India and Pak DGMOs for the talks that are going to take place after the ceasefire was announced. Time for us to take a quick break.